All right, welcome back to another Wright Stew podcast. I am Paul Stewart.
And I am Brian Wright, and we have made it to my second favorite day of the year, or not year, of the
Of the
week.
year.
Of the week, of the week.
Wait, hold.
Saturday.
What's your second favorite day of the year? Do you have a second favorite day of the year? A first, a top two, top three?
My first day is probably, I'm a big Thanksgiving guy. No
Yeah, me
pressure on
too.
presents, very good food. And then probably my second favorite day is like New Year's Eve. Like that week between one of those days in
Mhm.
there. The
Yeah.
holidays are already over. You've got dealt with whatever that funness was. And
No melancholy with it all being over. Or are you still just riding the wave of?
no, I don't get melancholy for the holidays. I mean, and maybe I don't get too pumped for the holidays. Matter of fact, in my heart, I find a little drudgery for the holidays when it
Okay.
comes to everything that's just involved. I think we overdo it so much with lights and gifts and parties and everything else.
Yeah.
So yeah, I
So,
don't
so
get.
we're not hosting the Wright Stew podcast Christmas party this year.
I
Will
mean,
we
we
invite
could.
staff and family and stuff?
Well, we could, but I would not. I wouldn't be super like. I think you got to get really amped up to get melancholy, right? You to feel that kind of post.
The highs and lows. Yeah, a little
Yeah, and
bipolar.
that's just not my nature. I'll get angry. I rarely get super excited, like about things. At this point in my life, like my excitement level, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there'll be something in my life, probably one day, hopefully, where I feel like anticipation. I think like lowered expectations of life have kind of got me to where there's no expectations. My expectations of life are just kind of set here, right? Never have too high expectations, then you can never be too disappointed.
That's why you're a Rocky guy, not an Apollo guy.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's fair. So somebody who may be melancholy, Tony Reale, the host of Around the Horn. So Around the Horn has been a staple of that with Pardon the Interruption for the last 20 years, realistically. And ESPN recently announced that it's canceling the show. And to be fair, I haven't watched it in a long time. I don't watch a lot of just kind of television anymore, a lot of ESPN, unless it's actually a game. But that was a big part of kind of getting home and just cutting it on. And I know in the clubhouses I played in, it was always on, and guys were watching it, and it was just kind of talking topics of the day, and it kind of hit that first wave of kind of talk radio, talk TV, talking heads, that sort of thing. But it introduced a lot of kind of mainstream media characters to the United States, to the world. And it was always interesting. It was fun hearing what takes they had, and I like the format of bringing in people from Denver and Philly and Cali and Florida, and kind of hearing what they had to say from different perspectives. But Brian, what's your thoughts on? Were you a big Around the Horn fan, or Pardon the Interruption?
It, I was one of those guys. Initially, when it came on, I thought it was stupid, and I did not appreciate it. But it truly did grow on me. And the kind of subjective scoring kind of became fun. You could tell if
Yeah.
there's, you could almost tell if somebody's like, "Hey, dude, I need to get off really quick. I've got somewhere I got to be." All of a sudden, they would answer a question really thoroughly and only get 3 or 4 points. And I really think that it did grow on me. I did see it was canceled. We kind of saw the host kind of be super young, stepping into a pretty big role to aging to, done it a long time. I bet you
Yeah.
do. I mean, in that environment, I can't imagine the kind of sense of loss after doing something that long. I was kind of the same way with PTI. Like PTI, when it first came on, these guys were yapping and kind of yelling back and forth. I didn't particularly like it. But it kind of grew on me, and I
Yeah.
learned to really like PTI. I really like that show
I
for a
feel
long
like
time.
that's way more your speed. Just Kornheiser, kind of a grumpy guy. Wilbon, a little cynical but can be optimistic, but both very rooted in reality, and having their own kind of fandom and things that they like to see. But I see you as a big Kornheiser guy. Is that right?
Well, I did, and I know politically they both lean pretty hard left, and that messed with me a little bit as I've got older and politics kind of came into everything. And so that messed with my view of them. But before that was such a, like, everybody kind of had to wear their scarlet letter. Like, before that was, a thing when politics was kind of hidden behind everything. I was a Tony. I was a big fan. And actually both those guys. When race and everything become political, it was hard for me to agree with their positions, but I still enjoyed. And I think, like you and I, Paulie, they had really good chemistry together. They tried to do that show with other people at times and bring in guests when
Doesn't
some
work.
people were
Yeah,
out.
that always work.
It did not work. It did not work at all. Those two together had something that I feel like was entertaining to me, and I did enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And so a lot of big things coming up, especially around college basketball. Here locally, we got the ACC tournament starting soon. Uh, so
Notable
next
fact.
so next Tuesday it'll be round one, where it's the lower seeds. And so the way they have it laid out now is the top four seeds basically they start Thursday, but the lower seeds play Tuesday, Wednesday, and then you move into, so it's, man, if you're like NC State did last year, if you're gonna win it from the bottom, it's 5 games, and you're really going hard. And I was actually talking to my dad today about it. He said, "Oh man, I miss the days of 8 teams or maybe 9 with Florida State when they had the playing game." And I did think, it was like, well, they have you know 18 teams and 15. Why not just have 16 teams and just have a nice square, like, traditional 16-team tournament? That's kind of the perfect number for a tournament. But then, I mean, you're not rewarding people for the regular season, but at the same time, I mean, you're playing one more game, and you're playing a 16 or a 15 or a 14 seed. You should be okay that first round. But do you have any thoughts on that? Do you like that, like, double bye, or would you rather see a more kind of square bracket?
Well, I think we've got to a point where the reward for the regular season does get you that double bye. So there still could be a reward. I tend to agree. Having, if you had those other teams in there, you at least give them, I like a fighting chance at the end, no matter what. That's always been the case with tournaments at the end, because if you win it, even if you had a completely poo season, if somehow you put it together, there was always hope for the tournament until there wasn't. And I don't like teams not making their own tournaments, but I do
Yeah.
understand that is kind of the, those bottom tier teams towards the end of the year fighting to just get into the ACC tournament. I kind of like that, but I do like I think I like more everybody having a shot. This one last next season, right? You failed at this first season. Now you get a new life at this next season. Everybody starts 0-0. I like that idea, and all being in there. It's just going to go to bigger and bigger conference tournaments. I think we probably end up with, like, maybe 3 super conferences when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
10 years
It
from
feels
now.
it feels like the SEC and ACC, gosh, man, within the next 8-10 years, become one kind of conference or
And
whatever it
there's
is.
going to be a lot that are left out. I could see an NC State left out. I could see a Wake Forest left out. I could see teams like that. Your Blue Buds that seem to have a national appeal would get in. Your North Carolinas, your Dukes, I think would, just because of their brand nationally.
Yeah.
I think in Virginia they have a law that if Virginia or Virginia Tech lead the conference, they've got to go to. They're like tied together as brothers almost, and so they got to go
Okay.
together. I don't think there's any of those rules in the state of North Carolina, but I do feel like it's going to change, and maybe we get to a point where you have like a paid for conference where conferences pay players,
Oh yeah.
and then you have conferences that don't pay players. Maybe they get scholarships. And I think that could almost separate teams in the money and the financial obligations, because there's so many athletic departments that cannot come up with the funds to be competitive. The SEC
Uh,
seems to print money. It's funny. A lot of those states, like, you hear politically, so, Alabama's so poor, and you know,
Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, none of those states are being thought of as like, man, that's a rich state. There's some money flowing there. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
and I would just say that all those states you think about, not wealthy states, but their schools seem to have all the money to pay players and build beautiful stadiums and really put competitive teams in any sport that they're in, and pay those players. And so
Yeah.
I do think at some point it probably changes to where we get to a situation where you have a paid for conference and a non paid for, because it's really going to put, this mid tier, your coastals, your ECUs, and maybe people are offended by that, but it really puts them in a bind where they may make a little money in their athletic department, but they're asking a lot of people to donate money. And, ECU's basketball has been terrible forever. Their baseball has been really good for a long time.
Yeah.
And their football has kind of been up and down.
Up
But
and down. Yeah.
when we were kids and we would go to East Carolina games, dude, that stadium felt like it was always packed. And I've been to one the last couple of years down there, and it was probably 65-70% full. And it was, and it's not like it's an 80,000 seat stadium. And so if you're not putting butts in the seats, you imagine the money's not the same. And then you got places like Texas and, LSU that 75, 80, 90,000 plus people and just completely bought in. And so I do think that eventually the conferences changes. And back to your original question, I don't like how the tournament leads people out. And I wish
you're in the conference. You should be in the conference tournament. I mean, is there really a difference between playing 15 teams to 18 teams? I'm sure they can figure out a way to have 18 teams play in a tournament. I mean, not too difficult in my estimation. I could probably draw it up on a piece of paper right now. So wouldn't I wouldn't mind seeing that for sure. But I think you're right. Once you get to those if you combine the SEC and ACC, that's gosh, man, that's a whole tournament on its own before the tournament, right? And maybe the big tournament kind of goes away or fades away, or there's no talents. The future of college basketball, college football, college sports is, I think, never been more up in the air than it is right now with just what's going on. So it's wild.
I almost wonder if we ever go to more of like a European model where you have academies and maybe you have football players that wear the Wolfpack logo, but they don't have to go to class to get paid. And you almost pull the revenue sports out of, and you could go to class if you wanted to, but it wouldn't have to be like a lot of your international football, soccer players, they'll go to academy and they're practicing 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
I've seen the little YouTubes and little shorts of guys like, hey, this is my life as a 16-year-old professional. And he's obviously not on the top team, but he's kind of working his way through the organization. And you wonder if we ever go to that. But it is a really challenging prospect.
Hockey does similar things in Canada with like their juniors and things like that, right? So there's ways to do it. And I think baseball could turn that way, right? To where you start having these junior colleges that become more relevant because you can go there and play, then you transfer it to a bigger school, and essentially everything just becomes a feeder program for the next thing. And I think you probably see a lot less high school kids drafted unless you're really, really special in some way, top arm, big power, sort of high, real speed sort of thing. But I think it becomes just more of a kind of a college draft. And maybe, and I think it's kind of started turning that way anyway. You'll see some organizations who just won't draft high school kids because it's so unpredictable what they turn out to be. So it's interesting, man. So, and speaking of baseball, I saw a guy kind of rant on pitch counts today, and this is something that I think pitch counts are kind of stupid. Like we've talked about this, and I know there's something to be said for pitch counts, right? You don't want to throw 1,000 pitches, but I mean everybody's built different. You know what I mean? Everybody has.
I think that's absolutely fair. I think that's fair.
And I think pitch counts were created because you had numbskull coaches out there throwing kids on back-to-back days and 90 pitches and whatever it was. You've got to protect them from that. So they create these rules. And it says, all right, if you throw 0 or 1 to 25 pitches, you have to rest for 1 day. If you throw 26 to 50, you've got to rest 2 days. And, different organizations and schools and things have rules like that. And it's like, So 1 to 25 is one day, but you throw 26 pitch, and all of a sudden now you have to 2 days rest. Like, and I know there's got to be a line somewhere, but I think that's where, again, it's got to fall back on the coaches, and maybe it's, gosh, maybe there needs to be some sort of certification course or something for amateur level coaches to go through to kind of see where
Yeah,
they're at.
and maybe that's where we start. Maybe that's our business model. Hey, we'll certify you as a guy who's able to follow rules. I think the arm
Maybe we just
issues
came up with a multi-million-dollar business plan, Brian. Don't,
that,
if you're out there listening, don't throw
don't
patent
steal
on
it
that yet.
yet. Paulie's got ideas. I will say this. I heard somebody else say it, and I think it's absolutely true. The arm injuries and stuff is more attributed to the build up and the build up of the arm before you go out and max effort. Because you go out, a lot of times what you do with these tournaments, and we see it even at our levels, you don't practice a ton. Kids don't throw on their days off. And if they're not practicing with a team, then all of a sudden Saturday they're throwing, 60, 70, 80, 90 pitches at 95% effort. And so I think that's more the arm issues. But I think the challenge is early in the year, you should ramp up as a coach, right? You probably
Yeah.
don't want to send your guy out there his first game in March and throw 95 pitches. Some people do, I
I've
hear.
seen it happen. I've seen it happen, Brian.
Yeah, some people do. But, we tend to keep guys, under 60 is kind of the goal. First
Yeah,
start,
there's
second
a way to
start.
build up, and you got to build up. But man, just the generic, like 100 pitches seems to be, or like 90 pitches now is like that's that qualifying number. It's like, oh, that's too much. It's like, it's too much for who? Like when I first started with the Brewers, our pitching count was 125. I was talking to a mutual friend, Corey Lee, the other day. Corey Lee said when he first started with the Texas Rangers organization, it was 135. That was the number, right? I mean, we talked about Steve Dalkowski. How many pitches do you think that guy was throwing?
I don't think anybody was
No.
counting, and maybe if they were counting after the fact. I'll say this: I need to bring this up. Last night, the ECU pitcher against Coastal struck out 19 guys
Woo.
in 7 1/3 innings
It's pretty good.
and 103 pitches.
103.
Yeah,
So you just threw nothing but strikes?
I guess I didn't see much of the game. I saw the umpire looked like he was a little wide at times, but he
Yeah.
struck out 19 guys over a 7 1/3 innings, 103 pitches. I mean, it's pretty incredible because you're talking total outs possible, I guess, are 22. So 19 of the 22 possible outs he could have got were strikeouts.
Pretty
Now,
incredible.
his brother is the big leaguer. His older brother's in the big leagues. And so he's obviously followed in those steps. Nice little lefty. And they throttled Coastal Carolina. But it's I think you mentioned it earlier. It's very much a case-by-case basis. I don't think I think really probably what should drive the ship, and maybe I'm arguing against myself. Are you throwing strikes and do you look labored? Has your mechanics significantly changed?
Yeah.
That really probably should drive it. But I do think when it's early and it's cool outside, and especially if you have a long hitting side, you drop that number down a little bit. I think getting started again after you kind of already got hot is challenging too for a lot of kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's probably lack of experience. Coaches get too caught up in trying to win a ball game or, keep their guy in and ride it out as long as you can. And there is something to that, right? You want to see kids battle through some adversity. But there's different levels of stress in each pitch. I mean, you could go there in the windup and throw 100 pitches and like homeboy last night and probably be fine, right? Or you could throw 103 pitches and 3 2/3 innings and have the bases loaded and walk 5 and that's a different level of stress on your arm, right? So there's different level of stress on every pitch, and I don't know. I saw that guy in his soapbox and it got me on mine. I'm like, this pitch count stuff. It's overrated. I mean, I was all about throwing, try to finish a game. Nobody's trying to finish a game anymore, man. Nobody.
No, that's not a goal. Hey, I want to get you on another soapbox, Paulie. Daylight savings time is coming up tomorrow. And I don't know. I kind of wish we just pick a time and let's go with it all year long instead of gain an hour, lose an
Yeah.
hour. Where are you at? Do you like daylight savings time? Do you like the standard time? I know Arizona and Hawaii, or most of Arizona and Hawaii, do not
Parts
change.
of Indiana too. Yeah. I
Okay, and so
I
what's your
don't
thoughts on it?
I like the one we have in the summer, whichever one that is. I like the later. And I actually I saw like a TikTok or something. Somebody asked Donald Trump about it. And because like there was some push for like, hey, let's just knock this thing out, man. Let's just do it. And Donald Trump said it's a 50-50 issue. He says, believe it or not, I can't believe it. He said there's a lot of people who like having the light later in the evening, but there's also a lot of people who like having the light early in the morning. So like when they take their kids to school, that sort of thing. He says a 50-50. He said when there's 50-50 issues, we just kind of move on. We don't fight it too much. And I was like, that's fair, I guess. Man, I don't know too many people who like the early morning light. Like I don't know, maybe I'm not talking to the same people, he is.
No, and obviously, I think sports families generally like the late afternoon light because it is so tough if you're trying to work on a skill or do something outside with your family and it's getting dark at 5:30 or 6. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad if we had daylight savings time all the time, and then in December when it gets dark around here at 5, between 5 and 5:30, if that was between 6 and 6:30, I don't think winter would feel quite as bad, right?
Oh yeah.
Winter feels so tough during that December month
It's
when
like
it's
4:45 and like up sunset. Crap. There we go. Yeah.
yeah, it's dark all the time, and so I don't think, at least around here, if you kept daylight savings time, I don't think people would argue against it. So daylight savings time is the one that happens in the summertime. The
Okay.
standard
That's what
time
I
is
say.
the other.
If you say otherwise, you're wrong. I'll tell you that. I've joked around like I have no aspirations at any sort of political office. But I said, man, the one platform I would run on was daylight savings. Like, let's just keep it the same time. Or maybe just cut it in the middle. Like, let's go in 30 minutes. Let's do something.
I've heard people mention that. I just don't like the switching back and forth. I don't like gaining. It takes a week or a few days. Maybe I'm mentally weak. It always takes, like, I can accustom like how I feel, but just my internal like guessing what time it is completely off for a week or more.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the same thing. People say, oh, you get to sleep an extra hour. It's like, so dude, my internal clock's going to wake me up at the same time every day. Like, it's 5:45. I'm waking up no matter what. Like, and if the time changes, it's going to be 4:45 that day. That's what's going to happen. It's not changing. Just
So
part.
we're losing an hour. So all of a sudden, Sunday at 2 a.m., it will magically jump to 3 a.m. And so we lose an hour, is how that works. But it will be a little bit of adjustment, but we will get the benefit of the longer light in the evening, a little bit darker in the morning.
That
But
means I can be on my flat top cooking some hibachi and I can still see. I don't have to have the floodlight on with the shadows and everything. So I'm in
hey, so
favor.
that made me, hey, I know you are the big cooker in your house. And so I want to ask you another question, Paulie. I know you're a grocery store guy. And so if you have like your standard, like, your meal for when you're watching a ball game? What do you like to cook? Like, you've already eaten maybe your main meal, or maybe just have a snack. Do you have a go to like opening day baseball meal? Do you have anything that you like? Are you a light guy? Are you a hot dog guy? What do you do with the house if you're just watching games?
I mean, that's going to depend vastly, Brian. If it's the Super Bowl, going all out, we're having wings, bowl of chili, the whole thing. Families come over, Sunday football, probably a pot of chili. Those, I mean, spaghetti is always good, that sort of thing. So kind of a crock pot sort of situation. Opening day baseball, gosh, probably burgers and dogs on the grill. Well, it's. So I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to take my son out of school early that day. I've done that I think the past like 3 or 4 years, and we'll watch like the 1 o'clock game, whatever it is. And my favorite thing to do is when you go check them out, you have to give the little write on there what for like doctor's appointment. Put opening day is what I put,
So
and
you
just
do put that.
oh yeah, okay, who
I
cares?
love it, dude.
Uh, but I think opening day, yeah, hot dogs, hamburgers. I like to cook a lot of different things. I don't have like a standard, sort of thing. I like having at the ball game. I like the the shelled peanuts, cracking those and leaving a pile of peanuts on the ground, and My son likes them too, but sometimes he'll try to eat them in the house, and there's like a little shell residue all over. I'm like, go on the back porch, just bring them in. So, do you have a favorite? Do you have an opening days? And
No, no, I really don't. I mean, I am, I'm not a big put meals around events kind of guy. I'm much more
yeah,
of the event, but I appreciate you as the cook. I wanted to get your perspective. I have seen, and I cannot pick up any of them off the top of my head, but they have done some really elaborate foods in stadiums now. I don't know if you've
oh
seen
yeah,
any of this stuff. I mean, like shrimp and depend on where you are, and all these almost looks like a casserole in a little helmet like they used to put the ice cream in. And so they're
yeah.
doing some pretty elaborate meals. And so I think a fun trip would be, I know you're going to all the stadiums, but when you do
Working
that,
on it.
like what is kind of the staple of that stadium, or what makes the one meal at that stadium is their unique meal,
Yeah,
and then you evaluate it as hey, I give this on a Paul scale, I give this a 2.5 out of 5 or whatever. I'd be
yeah.
curious.
So we always get. So anytime we go to a stadium, my son gets a t-shirt jersey of whoever his favorite player is for the home team, and like a fitted hat. And then he loved the boy loves Dippin' Dots.
Yeah.
I love ice cream. I love Swift, a big sweet tooth. I've never understood Dippin' Dots. It's such a weird concept.
The ice cream of the future. It has been for like 40 years. Yeah.
I don't know if it can still be. I think they changed the logo because like you can't be the ice cream of the future for 40 years. But we always get Dippin' Dots in one of the soft serve if they don't have Dippin' Dots in the helmet. So he collects the helmets. And then like Baltimore had some like Old Bay seasoning on all their fries and stuff. Their crab. He's not like a seafood guy, so we didn't eat crab sort of stuff. He loved Chickies and Pete's in Philadelphia when we were up there. It's like chicken fingers, French fries sort of thing. In New York, he was like, let's get some New York style pizza. I'm like, at the stadium, I don't know if we should do that, but we ended up getting a slice of pizza at Shea Stadium. That was, or not Shea Stadium, City Field at the Mets place, and then at Yankee Stadium, I think we just got like popcorn and hot dogs with on top of the ice cream sort of thing. So, you know what, man, the Rays part was. I got a Cuban sandwich at the Rays Park. Because I should have got it at Miami, but I didn't. But that was pretty good at the Rays Park. I
You
enjoyed
know,
I enjoyed the Trop. I thought the Trop was great.
that's what I was going to say. That's what I recall about a lot of your trips as far as this destination. Like the Rays, you look back at the Rays, or when you maybe were at the Rays, you're like, dude, this place is pretty awesome. I actually like watching a game here.
I mean, climate controlled.
No moss. No moss. Obviously, this year is
Uh,
not going to be the case. The Trop
uh,
is
they're
under
at
reconstruction.
Legends Field or Legends Stadium where the Yankees play spring training, so they'll be fighting the elements. It'll be hot, man. But I think the seating capacity will make more sense, though. What 11, 12,000 for them, whatever it is. But I enjoyed the Trop. I expected to hate it, and I turned out just loving it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was just such a unique kind of thing being indoors like that. And
We played the
uh,
ACC tournament down there one time.
oh, did you?
And yeah, we played inside there. The
What'd
thing
you
you
think?
would do, even I know they painted the roof or did something, you would lose balls in there a little bit. I felt like the ball flew in there. It was definitely a different sight lines playing the outfield opposed to a college stadium, especially back in my day. The college stadiums now,
Oh,
you
real
sent me a video.
stadiums, yeah.
You sent me a video of what your daughter is having to deal with. I think this is probably an under talked about type thing. The shadows that these stadiums create now when they play at 1, 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the afternoon
Yeah.
makes it hella tough on hitters when you got shadow here, no shadow, shadow here, and it's like, dude,
The
I mean, it
ball
looks
coming
like the
in and out of
ball's
shadows, yeah.
disappearing along the way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think big league stadiums have done a lot better job of when they build the stadium, like facing. So traditionally, you were supposed to face, I think it was whatever direction it was, but that was one of the reasons that southpaw became a southpaw because the arm came from that side. And yes, but
I
some
did not know
stadiums.
that. Hey, speak on that. Can you speak on that a little bit more? I did not know that. That's a great intellectual thing that I never knew why they were
Well,
called southpaws.
so southpaws were called southpaws because baseball diamonds when they were constructed, the sun, like Brian was saying, makes a difference, right? So ballparks were often designed so that the batter faced east, which will put the left-hander's throwing arm to the south. And so that's why they were called southpaws, right?
Oh,
So
that's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. Yeah,
yeah.
that's something that I've got a left-handed son. Doesn't really love pitching, but it's interesting that is why they're called southpaw. And that term, it really can't. It comes into all sports vernacular at this point.
Yeah, so boxers, you hear them called southpaws as well. But yeah, man, so that's but the way stadiums are designed and clearly some people have more foresight than others. The way my second daughter, their softball field, the sun sets literally like right behind home plate.
You sent me that video. It was terrible.
So for a fraction, for probably 30 minutes during the game, sorry, center fielder, you're in trouble.
Blind.
Or even the pitcher getting the throwback from the catcher, you have to like put your hand up to protect from seeing the sun. I remember in Bakersfield, California, in the Cal League, the sun set in center field. And so game time literally changed every night depending on when the sun set. And they literally built a big giant hitter's eye, like the biggest hitter's eye you can ever imagine. And it's just a big wall so that they could start the games a little sooner because the sun would set behind it. But I think they would let the sun go behind it, then they give like another 10 minutes or so you didn't have that glare. But that was always, we'd have some like funky, like start time 7:53 tonight, stuff like that. So it was,
Oh, that makes sense though. At least they didn't try to play it. I remember being so frustrated as a hitter in minor league ball, and you have a stupid white sign. I think I've spoke on it before or something. I mean, it's like, dude, how in the world you got guys throwing from this low arm angle coming out of a white sign? It would piss me off so bad. And you try to change, what you learn from older guys and guys that have been through it, done it. You literally will change your position in the box. You will squat more. You may
yeah.
stand up more. You're trying to change angles. So you're changing your stance because of the stupid stadium. But I've seen more college baseball played in the afternoon, and they have not thought this out because there are some funky shadows that guys are having to battle
Well, a
through.
lot of times they're on campus and they're like, all right, we've got 2 acres right here. We got to put it here, and we can only put it this way because of the way this dorm is over here, things like that. And you're right about those signs. I remember so in the minor leagues during like pregame stuff, infielders are getting their work in, but pitchers are just used for like extra bodies, right? So a lot of times you would go play first base or play second base, and middle infielders would field a ground ball and flip it to short or flip it to second base, and you would
You'll be a pitcher there.
catch it and
Yeah.
put the ball in a bucket. And then same thing, first base, they'd hit ground balls in between pitches to the infielders, and they'd come across the infield. And I remember at times different stadiums that had those. It felt like a lot of predominantly white background with colored writing. It was tough to see the ball coming across the infield sometimes, depending on your right arm slot. If it sometimes it came out of some different signs. I was like, man, it's kind of tough. And good thing, they were typically hitting me in the chest, like 99 out of 100 times, but sometimes it was tough to see though. And it wasn't, they didn't do anything different or anything special. It's just the way the angle came. So
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
I think they've changed a lot of that now too, as well. Though I don't think there's, kind of that traditional stadium with like a million different advertisements in the outfield. I don't think you see that as much.
I think you see electronic, like you see that at the
Or the
Bulls Stadium
digital,
here
yeah.
locally. I mean, it's beautiful, and they've got a restaurant over there behind the big tall wall. Kind of like the Boston Red Sox
Oh, the
Fenway,
Green Monster,
but
yeah.
but they got a restaurant now back behind that, which is pretty awesome to sit at and have a beer, have a meal, and watch baseball. Then you step out and actually watch baseball on top of the wall. It's really great setup, but it is also, the stadiums, the minor league stadiums now are so much nicer. College stadiums are so much nicer, and I'm not sure. They talk about money and that sort of thing, and I know NC State's trying to redo theirs and kind of get close to maybe what everybody else has, a little bit behind. But it's just a lot of money to keep up with the Joes. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, man, well, exciting Saturday. A lot of good sports out there. So we hope you guys enjoy your sports day. And make sure you continue to like, subscribe, and follow us on all the socials, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. And if you're listening on Apple Pods or Spotify or Heart, hey, make sure you give us a good rating. Leave a review. We appreciate those sort of things. That helps us out in a big way. But man, make it a great day.
Out, go pack. 9-5.